What a beautiful day we have here down in South of Florida. I'm so excited to be here because on my side here we've got Orrin Woodward, which is one of my biggest heroes that are alive today, and his knowledge is just so incredible, and we've gotten to have a checkup from the neck up for the last 48 hours, and yeah, we've not checked out yet. We want to stay here with him and just get the last bit of juice, and we posted on the internet, or actually Art did, because he's the internet guy of the three of us. Just some questions. We got one question from Kim Campbell. Which was a great question, because it was about how do you delay the gratification of achieving a dream when you actually have the money to already buy it, and how can you use that as a power instead? And that's one of the things that I see on my team, is that people get a little bit of money, then they can afford a Mercedes, and they just want to buy it, and I'm saying, but you should put up a goal. Absolutely. So that you can actually delay that gratification. What's your take on that, Orrin?
Well, you hit it. Delayed gratification is an essential in this whole profession, because it's, well, I have $50,000, I can go buy that car right away. And I'm like, wait a minute, whatever you do, don't steal a good burn. If there's something driving you, man, and it's leading you out of the house and going out there and sharing your opportunity across the country, when you buy that car, you lose the burn. So delayed gratification isn't just delay until you have the money, it's delay until you fulfill the goal. So it's like, yep, I have the money. You know what I want to do? I want to actually get to the point where not just have the money, but I also hit this new level in the business. And by doing that, by denying yourself short term and putting that goal out there, not only do you end up hitting the goal because you had the burn, the drive, that hunger to do so, but then you're able to pick up the car and still have plenty of money left over. And that's such an essential. I see so many people, they make the amount of money necessary, they buy it, so they're always keeping their bobber right at the level of the water, or just one tug, financial tug, one downturn, one something happens in their business and they're immediately going under and starting to take in seawater, and that's just not a fun situation. So by setting that goal, delaying the gratification, you can go out there and achieve, be able to pick up the material rewards and still have plenty of money left over, keeping your bobber above water.
And I'm picking up on something here, because the very minute you say delay the gratification, you said even if you have the cash to buy the car, you should delay the gratification. For most people, having the cash and buy it cash, that would be like way beyond delayed gratification.
Oh, you know, you're right. I mean, I kind of have a principle myself. If I can't pay cash for it, I can't afford it. I mean, that's just a general principle. Because I think sometimes people think that if I drive up in a fancy car, that'll sponsor people. Listen, it might put someone in your business, but who you become is what keeps people in your business, way more than the material things. I mean, it's like, this yacht is not sponsoring me. It might bring someone into my business, but it's not keeping people in my business. It's the change process. And so your ability to have long-term vision, delayed gratification, and utilize the power of compounding is way more important than any material thing you could buy to impress people. So Lori and I have a principle. We live a cash lifestyle. If we want to buy a house, we're going to save up the money and pay cash for it. We want to buy a car, we're going to save up the money and pay cash. Now, I recognize where people are at getting started. We certainly couldn't do that when we got started. But we did not go out there. The first Cadillac I ever bought, I went and paid cash for it because I kept saving. All right, I got $10,000, I got $12,000, I got $18,000. I think I paid $18,000 for a 2-year used Cadillac at the time. And that was such an incredible moment, because I had watched the money slowly increasing, and I had set the goal, if I hit this, and I already had the cash, I had the $18,000, but it took me another 4 months to hit the goal. So every month I'm looking at that, I gotta hit this goal. If I would have bought the car, I wouldn't have hit the goal.
That is some incredible wisdom, and that was a good example of how you use your delayed gratification. It's not only about being able to afford a thing, but it's actually making the thing you want, increasing your hunger to get the real goal that will keep you making money for years and years and years.
You got it.
So that's some very exciting information. And we have got one other question here that came in, and that's from Paul Sargi, and when I say that, it's probably like when Art tries to say rømmegrøt, which is very difficult. So I'm sorry about that, Paul. I'll call you with the first name. But he is asking the question of what's the first 5 books on leadership that you read, and I would like to rephrase that, because whatever first 5 books that I read on leadership, I wish I got to pick the 5 books that Orrin is going to bring us through right now.
You know, I don't remember, if I go back, I can't remember the first 5 books that I read on leadership, but I specifically remember the first book on leadership that I ever read. I mean, here I am, I'm 26 years old, and I read the first ever leadership book that I'm ever going to read, and I pick it up, and it's called Developing the Leader Within You by John Maxwell. And it was just like from page 1 going through that, and these are all foreign concepts. It's talking about improving yourself, and if you improve yourself, you can lead. And I'm probably only making out about half of what it's saying, but I'm thinking, when I'm reading the book then, I'm thinking, boy, wouldn't it be great to be a leader? I mean, no one ever associated Orrin Woodward and leader in the same sentence, unless there was a non in the middle there, Orrin Woodward non-leader maybe. But I just remember thinking, wow, wouldn't it be great if that could happen? And I think all great achievement begins with a hope that maybe, just possibly, that could happen. And that first book led me into the next, you know. And, you know, we have a top 5 books that we promote in our team. Things like Magic of Thinking Big and How to Win Friends and Influence People and Personality Plus and How to Have Power and Confidence with People. Books like that have such an impact in someone's life because most people, they associate with non-dreamers. They associate with non-achievers, not bad people, they're great people, but they were never inspired themselves to go out and achieve, so they don't learn the principles. There is a pattern for success. There's a process for success in anything. I mean, for example, as an engineer, if I walk into a Ford factory and see one of their lines, I'm convinced at the beginning when I see the parts come together, at the end there's going to be a new Ford. Because that's the process. You start over here, you put the raw materials on, and eventually all the parts assemble together, produce a Ford automobile. In the same way, if a human being will put all the parts of success together and begin to assemble it, eventually over here you're going to have a leader, an achiever, and someone who's fulfilled dreams that they thought was impossible because they didn't know the process. And that's what books do in a person's lives, and CDs, is it starts to assemble the various assembly processes to produce from raw material to a finished product and achiever.
That is really great. And I just want to add to that the Launching a Leadership Revolution was one of those books that I wish I could have just have gotten like delivered to my door when I started network marketing in 1993. Why didn't you write it sooner?
took me a long time in that process, and Chris Brady in that process, to get to that point where we could write that book.
So I think this guy, Paul, is really asking the questions, which books did you wish you got to read earlier?
Yeah. Well, we wrote Launching a Leadership Revolution with that in mind. And if you go into the back of Launching a Leadership Revolution, look at all the books we refer to, those are the books. That's the foundation of our leadership. When we sat down in, I think it was 2004, on a private island, and this question led to that book. What makes the difference? There seems to be so many talented people that join our organization that just don't ever seem to go accomplished. But then there's others that just, man, you would have thought, boy, if someone wasn't going to make it, that'd probably be the person, and yet they end up going out and achieving great things. And there's like, what makes the difference between people who end up becoming great leaders and others who seem to, whether they tried hard or didn't even try, they just didn't seem to come out with the final product? And that question led to a 4-hour discussion late into the night, and we started taking notes, and we said, well, what is leadership? Maybe we ought to just define the term. And it's amazing how hard it was to define what leadership was. It's like, leadership's attitude. Well, no, it's not really just attitude, although attitude's part of it. Leadership is vision. And I'm like, no, it's not just vision. Leadership is results. Well, that's part of it. Leadership's loving people. And it looked like we just had a list of adjectives. And I'm like, then what is it that separates a leader from a non-leader, and what's the process that we could tell people to go through to become a leader, and the 5 levels of influence. And the whole book is basically, that's what we knew at the time, documented in an engineering way to say, if you started with no leadership, that you could walk through the process. And in that book we reference all of the books that we learned these principles from.
It's an amazing book, and it actually leads us to the last question I had on my list here. Sent from Judith Rieger. I don't know if I'm even close to that one, but what she says is, what would be your advice to becoming a dream builder? And in the first couple of years of that process of becoming that person that has those big dreams. And Art and you were talking here just a little bit earlier on hunger, and you touched on the hunger, which is a subject that is amazing, and I think you gave some incredible information on that. But here's how I see hunger, and that is that it's like a seed that everybody has got. And whoever is fertilizing that seed, it's either going to grow or it's going to be more and more hidden under the dirt. Because if you put a lot of dirt on seed but there is no nutrition in that seed, it's not ever gonna what do you call that, fertilize and then sprout.
Yep.
So what do you do to get your dream sprouting if you have that hunger?
That's a great question. You know, I gave a talk called The Ant, the Elephant that will describe it in more detail, but you have to literally feed your brain the image, the picture. You don't get out of life what you want. You don't even get out of life what you deserve, but you always get what you expect, what you picture. And so if you want to accomplish, you know, Lori and I, we still pinch ourselves. We'll drive back through Columbiaville and look at our 982 square foot house that we started this journey on, 1958. Wasn't paying for a 30-year plan. Couldn't afford new windows. We got exposed to networking through a used window salesman that we didn't even know, cold contacted, even though after we found out there were 15 people that were in networking that knew us that never contacted us because they knew we would never be able to do this, which they were probably right. Until we learned the power of the dream. When you will take the time to start feeding your subconscious mind, 4 billion neurons a second are fired when your subconscious mind starts to picture an image of a better tomorrow than today. And we started picturing, what would it be like to wake up in the morning and actually wake up wealthier than when you went to bed at night? What would it be like if you woke up in the morning and you realized that you had all your bills, everything was paid for, you actually owned everything that was in your driveway, you actually owned your house? What would it be like to be able to go on vacation, go on a cash vacation, have a cash Christmas? And it was crazy. I mean, I'm like, oh, come on, Orrin, get your head out of the clouds, all the stuff you hear. But that's exactly what you have. You got to get your head in the clouds, and then you've got to get your conscious mind, which in that same second that 4 billion neurons are fired in your subconscious in the image, when you're consciously thinking, I need to go do this, that's 2,000 neurons per second. So the conscious mind is the ant. The subconscious mind, that 4 billion neurons, that's the elephant. The goal in life is to get your elephant charging in the direction of your dreams, and then to hop on your logical, analytical brain on top of it. Now, being an engineer, that all I was taught on, I mean, I had maxed out my 2,000 neurons. And here's my point to all networkers everywhere. If you're 100% good at the ant, you're firing 2,000 neurons per second. If you're only 50% effective on the elephant, you're firing 2 billion neurons per second. So when people say, why do they keep talking about this dream? Let's get down to exactly what to do. Listen, 4 billion neurons. You might want to tap into that. And so when we look back, we said through God's grace and the craziest chain of events, we got exposed to thinking that we got our elephant charging in the direction. Then we put the logic on top of that 4 billion neurons, and the ant guided the elephant where we wanted to go.
That's amazing, and if you look around here, you can see a bit of what Orrin is seeing when he wakes up every morning, and we've been waking up here for a couple of days now. and that is really exciting. So if you were gonna take that down to like first, second, third step of what Judith should go and do, like right
Sure.
now, what would be the first thing she does, second, and then third?
Start with defining her future reality. In other words, where does she want to live? If all places, if she could live anywhere in the world, where would she live? What style house would it be? What type of car would she drive? What would be her lifestyle? Who would be the friends that would be associating with her? Who would be her close friends? Maybe people she doesn't even know yet. And then start to define that and go out and take a board and start to cut out the style house. I can go back to when I was an engineer. Here I am, an engineer, been in the business for a few years, started to understand these concepts, and on my wall at work, I had a picture of a private jet. I had a picture of a yacht. I had a picture of all these, a movie theater. All these things that I have today were just pictures on the wall. Not just pictures, though. It became, every time we'd have a new engineer enter our workplace, they would have the tour. They'd show them where the bathrooms were. They'd show them where the cafeteria is, where you can buy pop. And then they'd walk through and say, and here's Orrin. He's our crazy engineer. He's the one who somehow thinks as an engineer he's going to be flying around in private jets. Now, I'm thinking, I ain't going to be an engineer when I'm doing that, you know. But they literally would come, and part of the thing was, let's go laugh at Orrin. So one of the last steps in the tour was, let's go laugh at Orrin for having a movie theater and a private jet and a yacht and a beach house on the water. All the things that I look today, and I go through that entire list. And we have those things today because they were part of our dream board. And I would look at those, and just as if you watch TV, which I don't watch TV, but if you did, you see these ads being run at you, 30-second to a minute ads, and they're run at your elephant. They're giving you images of the success they want for your life. Not success for you, success for them, which means you buying their products. And they run that over and over. And they don't just run it once. They run them repeatedly until your elephant charges ahead and has to drive that car, has to wear this certain clothes, have to have these certain style sunglasses. Well, imagine if we took control of the programming and put our dream board together, and every day Judy were to run ads for her future, for her dreams and goals. And she would look at that and she'd imagine what it'd be like to get her morning coffee and walk out on her dock and see her fish swimming out in her bay, and maybe hop on her yacht or whatever her dreams are with her friends and enjoying life. Because while everybody else was laughing at those pictures, Lori and I were dreaming on those pictures.
And we were having a discussion about what it took to achieve a dream a couple of days ago, and we were trying to get down to something called vital behaviors, and you'll hear about that later on one day. But one of the things that we said then was that write it down and make a dream board and all of that, and in the midst of it we kind of went, well we maybe didn't do that with our first dreams, but we came down to the conclusion, tell someone. And that's what I like. You made a dream board, and then you made it visible for everybody.
That's
so
right.
You actually told all of the people around you, here, this is what I'm gonna do. So not only defining and making your dream board and hiding it in the bathroom at home, but actually showing it to the world that you're going to go and do that.
Confess it. I mean, you got to sit there. It's got to be set. It's almost like you can't help because it's on your mind all the time. Your subconscious, your elephant's working on that. I'll be talking to Orrin and we'll be talking about something and say, yeah, wouldn't it be great to have a yacht someday? And you know, and you know what?
Yes,
if you can't do that, if you can't with passion say that, then people are looking out. People are going to think you're crazy. But you know what? If you decide you're going to enter into the top 1% of America, or the top 0.1, or the top 0.001%, doesn't it, if you get to the 1%, for example, wouldn't it make sense that 99% think what you're doing is crazy?
That's right.
Because you're doing something they're not willing to do. So, of course, they think you're crazy, or they think, well, at least he's kind of funny. And I was okay with other engineers thinking that I was funny, because I had already decided that being an engineer the rest of my life was funny.
So step number one was define your dream. So second step.
Write it down, and write and image, because you got to speak to the ant, the elephant. And then the third is, when you have that, then the third step is as you're making friends and finding out what they want, then you share what you want, and then all of a sudden you have a common link. You have two people that dare to dream for a better tomorrow. Now listen, you'll run into a lot of people that are not willing to dream. They've closed it off or whatever. So many times you got to make a friend, and they're not willing to start speaking dreams with you. But if you can make a friend and get them associating with your crazy group of people that are willing to talk about dreams, and that it's authentic, that it's okay to share from your heart what you truly want. And when you're willing to put that out there for a watching world, all of a sudden you've got a level of commitment that the average, because it's easy to give up on something that you haven't stated to everybody. But when, man, there were 1,000 engineers expecting me to fail. And every time I felt like quitting, here's what I thought. I'd rather go get 1,000 more no's than one I told you so.
And that's amazing, and that's what I've gotten out of this checkup from the neck up. I can't really say all the expressions yet, but I'll be working on my English for the next 200 years. Or when we get to up there, maybe we can speak
Amen.
Perfectly old languages.
Amen.
But it's the one thing that I've gotten is that when you get down here and you spend time with you, it's actually allowed. You can actually go and dream and say whatever you think that you can achieve, and you'll get a slap on the back and say, go do that. And when you get people around you like that, encouragers that believe that you can do it, and are telling you, oh, you got that dream, but that's so big, I think you can do that.
Fired up.
That is when you really, really are on the path to hanging around with the right people. So I'm just excited to be here, and Hilda, my wife up here, which is watching this interview, you gotta film her because she's just gorgeous. We have enjoyed so much spending time with you guys, and just having the pleasure of being here, so I appreciate that.
Oh, thank you.
So thank you.
Thank you.
To participate in future opportunities like this one by asking questions or giving us your suggestions, feel free to follow Art Jonak on Twitter or Facebook.